from all our observations, and they explain all the observations that they had made, that we're dealing with severe autism. This is the first time I'm able to hear it.
But I am going to talk now about the great things that you have done with your children, because it is quite extraordinary. And this is what I want everybody to really take on board and listen to and know that there is hope, because Sonia is proof that there is hope.
Remember that we are a detox machine. So therefore, we need to put the nutrients in so that our bodies can heal us. We're not healing them.
Welcome to The Wellness Way with me, Philly J. Lay, a layperson's guide to your natural health systems, your very own NHS.
Hello, lovely people. Today I have a fantastic guest coming on The Wellness Way, a woman that I have been honoured to meet and work with and do many of her fermentation courses, which might give you a little clue as to what Sonia Dunduru actually does for a living. But she has the most remarkable story, and that's what we want to talk about today.
Thank you for having me, Philly. It's always fun being with you.
So, Sonia, sometimes life just throws shit at you. You don't know why, but you have a choice. You can either sink or swim. And Sonia decided to swim against the tide of what she was being told in Western medicine. She had the most tragic, and I hope you don't mind me saying tragic, because obviously it's not tragic for you now, but it was when it happened, in having not just one autistic child, but giving birth to two autistic children. We will come back to your two sons, but can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. I come from, my parents come from Algeria. It's an interesting story. When my mother was betrothed to an Algerian, she realized that if she got married immediately, she wouldn't be able to travel. So she put the marriage on hold, the engagement on hold, and went to France. Algeria is a French colony, and she went to stay with her sister. And whilst she was in France, she learned that she was pregnant with me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was born in France and stayed there for 5 years. And in the meantime, my mother had found love with an Englishman who was her English teacher. He was an Englishman who had come to do his 4th year teaching English as a foreign language. So they fell in love. And I collected me, who happened to be waiting in foster care, and came over to England.
Gosh, so you stayed in France in foster care and your mum came back. And obviously, for a mother to do that, there's something quite traumatic going on in her life.
Yes.
It's very interesting because what we're going to talk about later, I think it's actually very relevant to.
I think so.
You found a love of food traveling around Europe.
My mother is a phenomenal cook. And as my father, the person I refer to as father is my English father. And he was a university lecturer, which I said already. So he got jobs abroad and he lived in Saudi Arabia amongst the Arabs and in American compounds in various parts of Saudi. We lived in Italy and we lived in France.
So you did go and join your mother.
Yes. So from about four and a half, I'm with my parents. But what we met was different cultures, and because my mother was such a good cook, we enjoyed observing how people did things, how they prepared things. So yeah, it was quite an interesting life. I mean, you deal with trauma yourself, so I don't have memory for the first 4 years of my life. So my life memories start when I'm with my parents, which I think is relevant to the children, my children.
Yes, absolutely. You met your husband, the lovely Kevin, who I also have the pleasure of knowing, and you got married and you had lots of children. Lots of children. Very, very happy marriage. So tell us about your two youngest sons that were born with autism?
Yeah, they're the oldest sons. So the first two, Christian is the eldest. He's 20 now. So he met every milestone. He could speak, he could double bubble, he could speak, he could walk, talk, everything. And then at 18 months, lost him.
Wow.
He zoned out, eyes crooked, couldn't speak, countenance different.
I've got to ask you, Sonia, did he have any childhood vaccinations?
Yeah, yes, he did. He had the 3 baby vaccines that you have from 8 weeks on. So that's all he had. He didn't have, and when I said that's all he had, I'm meaning from a normal perspective, he didn't have the MMR, which a lot of people associate with autism, which we'll go into later. And in the meantime, I had my second child. The moment he came out of the womb, Philly, I knew something was amiss. And I took him, I home birthed all my children, and I took him from the womb, and I immediately saw something was wrong, and I put him on my breast and just held him there from an intuitive perspective. Something was amiss. I didn't know why or how. There was nothing to read except for instinct. And I nurtured that child since, for him to grow up and meet every milestone that was physical. So he could walk, jump, climb. He learned everything nicely. He could never speak, and he never double babbled. And double babble is when you ba da da, which happens round about that 5 to 8 month mark. And at 1.5, 2, cross-eyed, he didn't know his name, he couldn't understand anything. It was very scary, and I went into denial. I don't know if I went into denial, but I was in denial, I should put it that way. So whilst he's climbing the sofas, climbing on the edges of the sofas, climbing the bookshelves, I would say things like, because I'm a mother and I've got instinct, I would say, no, he wants to go out. So we need to go out, have a walk with him, let him burn off. Or he would make other sounds, and, oh no, he's hungry. So even in that, a mother and a child can understand each other, or a mother can understand her child. And because I understood it from a nurturing perspective, I translated it in denial as, of course he's normal because I understand him. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Really?
no, I do see that.
Yeah.
I do see that.
Whereas my husband was watching in shock. So I don't know if you know men, and I'm married to a man. They're problem solvers. So the whole time he's watching a problem and is been left hooked by Muhammad Ali, and is like, I don't know what to do. And the wife is in denial, so he had a double problem.
Yep, absolutely.
People started using the word autism and autistic, and this is 2004. And the only information and the only reference I had to autistic was Rain Man. And that was hell no. Hell no. So even if anyone said it, I would suck up tears in my eyes, say, no, go away, and really work to suck up those tears. And because I refused to cry and acknowledge this. So when it was pushed that we ought to go and see a pediatrician, and it was the head of pediatrician in Reading Hospital. I've had baby, so I'm on my 3rd child. So I've got a newborn with me. Christian's being babysat, my 20-year-old, the first one, who lost suddenly at 18 months. So we've gone with the baby and Kevin Jr. And they assess him. They have the speech therapist. They assess. It's about 2 hours. And they say that from all our observations, and they explain all the observations that they had made, that we're dealing with severe autism. This is the first time I'm able to hear it. So again, I'm sucking up tears, and I say, okay, what does that mean? And they said, well, he will never be able to speak. He will never have speech. He will grow up and become violent and aggressive, and you will not be able to, they're looking at both of us, you will not be able to manage him.
We've spoken about this before, but I am going to talk now about the great things that you have done with your children, because it is quite extraordinary. And this is what I want everybody to really take on board and listen to, and know that there is hope, because Sonia is proof that there is hope. So after these meetings with the pediatrician, after being kicked out, you went on a journey to reverse your children's autism against all the odds. And your journey has taken you to some quite remarkable places. You've been a supplier of sauerkraut to Planet Organic. You were called in by, let me see his name here, Dr. Tim Evans, who was the POC3 and GP to the late Queen Elizabeth II of the UK. You were asked to go in and talk about what you have discovered on your journey. So tell us about that. Tell us what you have discovered, what you did discover.
When I came out of that lovely toilet of mine and rolled my sleeves up, I didn't know we were going to reverse autism. All I knew is I love my son. That's all I knew. And I was going to do something. What is going on? And the only thing that my mind could do was go back to Saudi Arabia, go back to how I ate, go back to Italy, go back to this. And I started looking at food. So I started looking how we ate. I saw how every day my mother would give me something called buttermilk, but it was very thick. And it reminded me of the fermented stuff that I was having today. So I was thinking, oh, why did that stop? Why did that stop? Why did that stop? So another question. And then I started looking at heart attacks. I started looking at cancers, and none of the figures were going down.
No.
So all I could do was go backwards. How did grandma eat? How did they do this? There was no, the obvious, there were no processed foods. There were no shops. Grandma went to the markets. Even I loved markets.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I was
Or the
always
greengrocer.
encouraged to go to the market. Well, I wasn't encouraged. That's what we did. We went to the market. When you go to France, you're not a real
You
French
still go,
person unless
yeah.
you're picking up and smelling the fruit and smelling the meat and look at them and lift it up. Look, no, put that one back. I want this one.
We always used to taste it. We used to go into the greengrocers, and before you bought a punnet of strawberries, you tried one or a grape, and you
Yes.
check the flavour. It is truly astonishing. I mean,
It
as
really is.
I've said many times on this podcast, I started my journey to self-heal with diet and nutrition because I didn't know where else to look. It was remarkable. I mean, I put energy work in, and that's a whole nother level, but diet and nutrition alone
Absolutely
works wonders.
But let me take you up on that. Philly, we didn't just do, because this is something we heard from our friends and people. Oh, you're all about food. You're all about food. You're all about food. And it's like, no, we're not. When my child, his eye was up here, his eyeball was up here, and the other one was down here. I went to bed and I was thinking, how can we help him? What can we do? What can we do? And this thought came to me that whenever you have a blank surface, a white piece of paper, a white wall, you will notice a stain if there's a stain on it. So what I did is I cut out millions of little square pieces of paper, and I put a dot in one place, a cross in another place, and I did lots of one dot, one cross, all in different places. And then my husband held my son's eye, one eye closed. He wouldn't look at anything, wouldn't. I tried to read books with him and say, look at the cow. Cow goes moo. I would be sweating buckets after 1 minute because he would be fighting me. There was no getting through to him. So it was then that I was thinking, okay, how can we get his eye sorted? So my husband would cover his eye and I would hold the card. And you have to look at the dot. So I would move the cards until he had locked the dot or the cross. And we did this only a few days and his eyes straightened.
Oh my God.
Now you've got to remember, I'm going to talk to the audience. You are a mum who loves your child. You can do this. You are observing these micro needs all the time, unbeknownst to you. And that's all I did.